If you're interested in what I look like in real life and want to learn more about me, then follow my Instagram page at Joe the Insomniak. It's been a long time for me, but I used to go camping a lot by myself. When I got older, I got used to going on sailing trips alone, loading up the boat, leaving a float plan with someone and disappear for a week or so. In both cases, the scariest stuff to me usually happened with unexplained noises followed by my imagination. Anyway, I was chilling on a log when suddenly a pine cone falls on the ground next to me. Then one hits me. At first I was sure someone was throwing them at me, but no one was around. I listened, I smelt, I looked, but nothing was out of place. Another pine cone hit the ground even closer to me, and I began to freak out. I don't believe in things like Bigfoot, but my imagination began to take over, and I wondered if something was out there throwing them at me. I grabbed my pack and began to walk away. Another few pine cones hit the ground around me, and I got this weird chill running up my spine. I was really freaked out and hightailed it out of there. I don't know what, if anything, was throwing them at me, but it scares the life out of me. The second thing I had was after a long day of sailing, I anchored up in a protected buoy for the night. Usually this is a pretty popular spot for overnight staying, but on this night I was the only boat there. The forecast called for a line of storms to come through, so I made my dinner early, double checked my anchor and went to bed. Several hours later, I'm awoken by a very loud and very eerie, weird wailing sound. The sound wasn't human, and I've never heard an animal make the sound before. It varied a little in pitch and intensity, but it sounded as though it was coming from all sides of the boat. I'm scared out of my mind. I didn't move, pretended I was asleep just in case there was something out there waiting to get to me. I listened to that sound for a good 10 minutes trying to localize it, racking my brain for what it could be. Coyotes, dolphins, aliens maybe. I have no clue, but it was not a natural sound. It was scary and dark. And this was going on while lightning flashes in the distance, followed by the loud sound of thunder rolling. I decided I had to go topside to check it out before the storm hit. And if I was gonna die, I'd die fighting, not curled up in my bunk. So I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on my shorts and headed to the companionway. When I turned the lights on, I could swear the noise got louder and rose in pitch. Freaky. I carry on, rushing through the hatch and shining my lights all around trying to find the source. And nothing. I fired up my spotlight, shining it all around the boat, looking for the source of the sound, which had seemingly died down since I entered the cockpit. But all the million candle power revealed was a brown pelican. He was scared away when I shone the light on him. I gathered up my courage as the raindrops began to fall, and went on deck where I still can't find the source of the noise. I end up going back in because the storm comes, and to this day I have no idea what it was. Now this was about 20 years ago, and wasn't really in seclusion, but nonetheless is pretty disturbing. When my dad was young, he would sleep over at his cousin's house during the weekends. The house was all on one floor, consisting of the front door entrance attached to the living room and the kitchen. The living room had a long hallway for the bathroom. his aunt and uncle's room, and the bedroom where him and all his cousins would sleep. His cousin's room was pretty small with only one bed, a dresser and closet. The bed was pressed against the window, so when they slept, they would face the closet and the doorway. One night at around 3 a.m, my dad recalls seeing shadows coming from the closet. Panics a bit, then trying to wake up his cousins without any success. He doesn't see anything else or hear anything, so he falls back asleep. The next night, my dad hears a noise coming from outside the window behind the bed. He wakes up his cousin, and they try to run to where his aunt and uncle are sleeping, with nothing else happening for the remainder of the night. A couple of weeks later, my dad stays over for another sleepover. This is where it gets weird. At some point late in the night, at around 1 a.m, my dad hears something coming from the closet and sees shadows moving. Something must have freaked him out because he starts screaming, and suddenly a man sprints out of the closet, down the hallway and out of the door. His cousin wakes up, his aunt and uncle. The cops come and do some investigating, but never discover anything. We figure that this guy has been living here for a while. We have no idea how long. It just gives me creeps knowing what could have happened if it was just me and my younger siblings in there alone. I love caving. Absolutely love it. I even enjoy going through caving clubs. They send you information about once a month about featured cave tours. So 1 month, they sent out a packet containing a 7 to 8 hour wild man caving tour. I've been out on wild man tours before. They're not too difficult. Maybe some rappelling or mild climbing. Nothing over an hour though. This one had real danger. Climbing too much to the right, you get stuck. Slip too far, you can fall in a hole. Getting rescued there is virtually impossible. So there's 5 of us. 3 tour guides, me and another person. About halfway through the cave, they let us rest off this shallow ledge. It's right next to the biggest drop-off in the cave. The guide told us with larger groups, they did the typical total darkness and have everyone turn off their headlamps just to look around. When he mentioned us to follow suit, we did. After about 30 seconds, there was this sound. It honestly sounded like footsteps, and then falling rocks, followed by a screech. Immediately, the guide puts his headlamp on and starts panicking. I think he thought one of us had fallen or jumped off the cliff. He turns to the other guide and says, did they hear it? No one can explain it. They hadn't moved and 2 of us are still there. He radioed the surface to ask if any of the other tours were missing anyone. This was about 3 hours away from the start of the Wildman path, and without our headlamps, it's literally staring into a wall of the abyss. There was no way an experienced or inexperienced caver could have got that far. No animals lived this deep in the cave. The guide then asks us if we want to continue, and would understand if we refused, and we decided not to. We eventually completed the tour and everything was normal, but I have no idea what that could have possibly been to this day. I was once exploring the same woods near where I live. It was a while back when it goes from daylight to blackness in about half an hour, so it's pretty dark and I get lost out there. Anyway, I'm trying to find my way back and I noticed this wooden-like hut. It seemed pretty quiet, so I thought I'd check it out. When I arrive, I see the remnants of a fire. There was tarpaulin sheets with dry blood around it, and I mean blood everywhere. I tried taking a few photos, but my camera couldn't function well in the dark. I suddenly start hearing sounds around me, realizing now something might be close. I'm sure a murderer's coming, or some crazy guy. I'm sure they put out the fire as I arrived too. I very swiftly left. On the outside of the hut I see a symbol drawn in blood. It's literally the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life, and I never went back to them woods again. I was hiking in a remote, empty canyon by myself with only my dog for company. A couple of hours into the hike, I started feeling really paranoid. I can't figure out why, but I felt like someone's watching me, and my dog begins acting weird too. He was hanging really close to me while usually he roams far. His hackles would go up randomly, occasionally running towards the wall of the canyon to stand up on his legs and sniff intensely. 2 or 3 times he'd give me a random little growl, very uncommon. As we're leaving the canyon, I heard a little rock fall up on the wall, and I look up to see multiple mountain lions staring at us. Now, I am pretty sure they've been stalking us for a while. We slowly make our way out of the canyon very cautiously. The second I leave it, the feeling vanished. I was so thankful for my dog being on guard that day, because if he wasn't, I probably would have lost my life. I used to work as a lifeguard for a scouting camp situated on a huge lake, deeper in a pine forest. The kids would spend a week earning merit badges and swimming in the lake and getting splinters and going home, only for the next batch to come out and do exactly the same thing. This meant staff like me would spend a month or 2 living at the camp in tents. The staff campgrounds are a solid 10-minute walk from the showers, so if you wanted to be clean, you had to walk the whole darn way back along this gravel road. So we usually went in groups, but occasionally you go alone. So I'm walking down one night with my towel and sundries, and I look through the pine trees to see a bright light. Cool, I thought. This must be a planet like Venus or Jupiter. I reach the showers, and as I'm showering, I look up at this light. As I study it, I realize it's way too bright to be a star or a planet. It's almost like a helicopter with a floodlight about 5 miles away, around 30 degrees off from being directly overhead. The thing is, there's no noise, and the light isn't moving. It's just there. I stare at it for a good 5 minutes trying to figure out what the heck it is, when suddenly it turns over and zips off. From the distance, I stare at it. I realize there's no way it could be a helicopter or plane because of how quickly it moved. To this day I have no idea what the hell that thing was.